Okay. Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 6:19 p.m. Thank you to our interpreter, Astrid. Oh, do I need to do directors present tonight or director after, director Frady's, director Teitler, and myself, director Ramirez. Thank you to our interpreter, Astrid. Would you please share the interpretation instruction with our participants, and then we can turn on the interpretation function. Okay. The first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Directors, are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Do you have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Our next agenda item is our opening celebrations and updates by our superintendent, Dr. Anna Cole.
Good evening. I feel like I say this at almost every board meeting, but this is an incredibly busy time of year. We had a Monday was an all staff professional development day. So the kids weren't in school. This was directed by school leaders. So it was really time for school leaders to tailor professional development for the needs of their staff. Wanted to just welcome BMS, got to have a crew with their new principal. Jamie Hozak was part of the work on Monday. So that was really great to have him here and working with the team. Additionally, this week, our schools are finalizing the kind of really complex work that is administering all of our CMAS makeup tests, our PSAT makeup tests. So we will have all that wrapped up by the end of this week. We've seen great participation numbers. So we're looking forward to getting those that data when we're completely finished here in a couple months, but really grateful for the effort of our teachers and our administrators and our support staff to make sure that all kids had access to those assessments, that accommodations were met, and hopefully our kids were able to show what they can do. Also want to appreciate the adults who are really go the extra mile to support and create meaningful experiences for our learners. This is prom season. And so a couple of our high schools are getting ready to celebrate prom. And we know that that is a big lift from the student leaders who design those activities and organize them to the parent volunteers and staff who chaperone and then support the event for students. A joint Basalt Middle School, High School, Carbondale Middle School, Roaring Fork High School production of Mean Girls opens this weekend. So that'll be another pretty cool experience for our students to work on that performance. And then the last thing I just want to celebrate is that we knew this was coming, but the announcement felt really significant that the lottery for staff housing for Meadowood opened this week. And I think it's probably the largest one-time lottery of staff housing that we've ever had for the Roaring Fork schools. And so I think lots of excitement and anticipation about that investment that our district has made in really making sure that our staff are housed and have access to housing that is affordable, so that is not a barrier to folks working for us. So really looking forward to that process and helping folks get settled in and access all of the housing units that just came online. So we're really excited about that. That's all I have.
Thank you. The next business in order is a 24 to 29 strategic plan presentation from Dr. Anna Cole.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've been working on our strategic plan almost 12 months now and are delighted to share this kind of robust version of the outcomes and the findings and the plan. I'm going to fly through a bit of this because the board has seen a lot of it. And really just want to make sure that our community has access to this level of detail and understands the level of engagement that the board has had with the strategic plan and getting it to this point. And so as we know, the board's role and responsibilities when it comes to strategic plan is really keeper of the mission and vision, to provide leadership, oversight, development, make sure that we have adequate resources to do this work, to remove obstacles that are in our way of executing on our plan, to make sure that we are overseeing risk management, and then, of course, to make sure that the board is running efficiently and effectively. This outlines really how this process worked for us. Now, although the Roaring Fork Schools has done strategic planning 5 years ago, 10 years ago, what was different about this process was that our partner that we brought in, Attuned Education Partners, specializes in working with, in particular, diverse schools, and really pushes on addressing achievement gaps and opportunity gaps within schools through strategic planning. So they brought a really different, rigorous lens to the work. And before we even started the planning, Attuned was here last spring on site, really diagnosing our district strength areas and gaps. They did this through a performance data analysis, looking at all of our data about student growth, achievement, outcomes, access data. They conducted an instructional quality review. They were in our classrooms. They were assessing all of our instructional materials in terms of curriculum and coaching tools. And then we did a robust community input session through last fall to get additional feedback. All of that work led to strengths and also identification of gaps that we need to address in order to really explicitly address our achievement, the disparate achievement that we see between our students of color, our Latino students, and our white students, and especially the gaps we see in our ability to meet the needs of our emerging bilingual students and our students with special needs. So some of the things that Attuned really called out as strengths were the relationships that they observed in classrooms and the relationship-based culture, and they really believed that we had the foundations of a stable and relational learning environment in most of our classrooms. They also identified the systemic gaps that we are well aware of in terms of student outcomes and experiences. And they really highlighted that one of the key levers we need to address is the level of engagement that our students are participating in every single classroom of every day. And so they really highlighted what we would call cognitive engagement of our students and really wanting us to be able to push on the level of rigor that our kids are experiencing and really working with in our classrooms. They identified that only in 33% of the classrooms were we really reaching, that our students were engaging at the level of rigor that the curriculum expected. So we have a lot of work to do there. They also called out, I think, some gaps around some of the pieces we really heard from our students and our families, especially our students, our Latino students, our families, our Latino families wanted a stronger sense of belonging, and even beyond belonging, a stronger sense of ownership, representation, and voice in everything from the life of a school culture to leadership across the district. And so those were some of the gaps they called out. This slide just talks about all the community input sessions that we had with students and staff and partners and families to really identify all these different components. We landed with 5 strategic priorities. Number 1, really centering students and their lived experiences in our schools. Number 2, really leaning in on that rigorous instruction and making sure that our students, all of our students, especially our emerging bilingual students, Latinx students with disabilities, have the opportunities, the resources to access the level of rigor that we really want them to be working with and make sure they have access to. We have a priority around operational excellence and really making sure that we are improving transparency and trust, and making sure that we are a service-oriented organization in the way we support our staff and our families. I have a priority around student-centered partnerships, really wanting to name best practices around how we partner as a district, as schools, with families in support of their students, and also the way we can leverage our community partnerships. And finally, and importantly, a priority around strengthening staff recruitment, retention, and development systems. We know that one of the most important levers we can pull to support, especially our students of color, is to make sure that we have a staff that reflects the diversity that is in our community, and we have a long way to go. Our staff right now don't reflect the diversity of our kids, and that's an area that this priority is really going to lean in on. So what the rest of the materials in this plan are how we're going to address those priorities. These are illustrative examples of the way each priority is broken down into action steps and to responsible parties. So what folks are going to be able to see when they go through this is each of those 5 priorities broken down into chunks of work that we will start to launch at different periods over the next 5 years to really drive to the outcomes that we're looking for. Each of our priorities has priority measures that are going to help us track and make sure that we're on track to hit the goals and address the challenges that we're facing. So there's a lot of data in these pieces, but again, each priority is going to go through the initiatives that we're going to be working on. It's going to have measures to make sure that we're on track and that we're making progress towards our goals. So all of those kind of roll up into different activities, different measures, different data dashboards that we'll be sharing, that we'll be holding ourselves accountable to. And want to jump to these measures that I think are a really important piece of the strategic plan. And if we think about how would we give ourselves a report card, or how are we really monitoring and tracking whether we are meeting the mission and vision of the Roaring Fork Schools, we've identified what we call mission measures that are really focused on measuring whether we are meeting the expectations and being held accountable to the services we need to deliver to our students and our families and our community. And so we've organized these around 3 sections: Thrive, Learn, Launch. Thrive is really about how kids are experiencing our schools. We want to look at data around belonging. Learning is really around some of the kind of elementary, middle school growth and achievement data points that we look at as we do things like CMAS and PSAT. And then Launch is really looking at college and career kind of post-secondary readiness data, and making sure that our kids are have a lot of options available to them when they graduate from the Roaring Fork Schools. Each of these is then fleshed out with baseline data, end of plan targets. And I think what's really important about our end of plan targets is that each of these has in them no disparate outcomes between our subgroups of students. So we really firmly believe that all of our students can meet these goals, and it's a matter of us getting the right investments and resources in place so that they can, we don't see the disparate outcomes that we do right now. So there's a lot of detail in this plan that I know the board has been working with. We have plans of how we are going to bring this forward into the community with kind of more of a formal launch, with website tools and videos to share the plan over the next couple of months once it's approved by the board, to make sure all of our stakeholders have access to the plan. I think one of the really important pieces that we'll see that I think is different than some of our plans in the past is stronger accountability for the community, for the board, for our staff, to make sure that we are on track to meet the goals that are fleshed out in these plans. So our community can absolutely start to expect quarterly updates on the strategic outcomes, more data dashboards that really track our progress, and make sure that we're on target to try to get where we're trying to go. I'll stop there. Take some time for questions, comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Each board member will now have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions. We will begin with Director After today.
Great, thank you. So we had a rigorous discussion about the strategic plan in our work session a little while ago, which is also open to the public for people who want to observe that anytime. So I don't have any follow-up questions right now, but I just wanted to share that we in particular talked about how we're hitting the goals and targets that are laid out in the strategic plan, especially around increasing proficiency of the subgroups, and then how we're putting or will be putting financial resources toward the plan to ensure that we achieve the goals over the next 5 years. And then we also discussed and gave feedback on the public launch of the strategic plan that'll happen later. So, so I don't have any questions about it. I do have a question about your earlier report, though, on Meadowood and housing, if that's okay. Do you have any idea yet how much demand has manifested for the lottery?
You know, we don't know yet. So I think TBD on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Director Teitler.
I would just like to say thank you for this plan and addressing the disparity of our subgroups and making it a goal and a big target of ours to make sure that there are different outcomes for our different subgroups. And I just want to make sure that as a district, as we're analyzing how we're doing in our plan. And as we have reached our end of first year goals of the plan, that we're really taking a strong look at how did we go, and that there's accountability measures for us reaching those goals each year. And if there isn't, then there is some kind of step-by-step process in place that if we didn't meet our goals, what is it? And we're taking a good look at why didn't we meet those goals, and make sure that what steps we've put in place are effective. And if we find that they are ineffective, that we're looking at going beyond the scope of what we thought was going to work currently, and what our best hopes are that we're effective. And hopefully we do a great job of meeting those goals, and that is the best case scenario. But in the case that we don't meet those, that we're having some tough discussions to look at why, and taking a look at what are the different needs that aren't being met, if there are, and looking at solutions that are beyond perhaps what we've implemented up until this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Director DeFreeze?
Yes, thanks. As other directors mentioned, we did dive into this quite a bit during work session, but I think one of the things that was a very powerful takeaway for me was that the strategic plan demonstrates a significant pivot away from the philosophy of relying solely on adequate growth to determine success, which if it's, as a teacher, it's funny because you're torn, you can't do something impossible. So you want to always make sure your kids are growing, and yet that really has not served these populations. So the strategic plan ambitiously is pivoting towards achievement benchmarks that are ambitious. Again, sorry, I'm out of words at this time of the evening. And so I think, again, just my question, I think, is what, without getting into the weeds of implementation too much, how are you approaching this in a way that doesn't just tell classroom teachers to do more better?
Thanks, Lindsay. That's a great question, because so much of what we know matters is what happens in those classrooms. And there's already incredible pressures on our teachers. A lot of the work that's identified of how we're going to hit those and address those priorities, especially that rigorous learning for all, have to do with really coaching, stronger supports for teachers, professional development, really looking critically at making sure students can access rigorous curriculum, and frankly, making sure that our teachers feel like they are capable and have the tools and resources ready to meet the needs of our diverse learners. And so there's a lot underneath the strategic plan that's really around teacher development, teacher supports, and having additional team members to provide that on the ground support, making sure their principals are available for coaching, making sure that they're aligned, using data thoughtfully, have the time and the capacity to look at data, that we have a robust system of interventions that is access to evidence-based resources at their fingertips, that they have the right people in the buildings to support them with that. So there's a lot that we want to put around and in support of our teachers, knowing how important their work is. So a lot of that is baked into the kind of deeper action steps around that plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for this presentation. I did have some questions, and I'm just noticing that, so I apologize if this was my mistake, but on slide 21, strategic priority 4, number 2, we have a to be determined for the develop shared metrics with partnerships. I'm just wondering if you could speak to that.
You bet. What we were trying to really address here is we understand that as a small school district, we can't do everything. And partnerships have been one of the ways that we've been able to provide more resources and help our students and families access more programming and supports and experiences through partnerships. You're going to hear celebration of one of our really core partnerships with Pre-Collegiate tonight. And what this is pushing us to do, one of the things we heard from our community especially was, are we really leveraging all the partners in our community thoughtfully and in alignment with our strategic plan, and the values and the goals that we're trying to advance? And so that initiative is really around revisiting every partnership that we have in the Roaring Fork schools, from pre-collegiate to the Family Resource Center to Buddy Program to ACEs and to the Valley Settlement Parent Mentor Program, and really identifying and co-constructing with those partners goals and measures that we can find common ground on that would lead into measures that support our strategic plan. And it's really around trying to have some fidelity and accountability to the partnerships that we are engaging in investing time and resources into, to make sure that they are aligned and that we're all working in the same direction. And so the reason those are to be determined is because we kind of believe that the metrics for each partnership might look a little different. For example, you're going to hear tonight about some of the goals that pre-collegiate has that are super aligned to our goals in terms of achievement, post-secondary success, and making sure students have a lot of options available when they graduate. There's really strong alignment you're going to hear tonight from pre-collegiate, aligned to what you've seen in the strategic plan. I think some of our other partnerships, we need to tighten that up and make sure we're clear on how we can come together to support this plan and make sure that we're all focused on the same thing and working in the same direction. So what we anticipate seeing is probably pretty different targets and measures for the different types of partnerships, but it's a push for us to really look thoughtfully at those partnerships and make sure that we're aligned.
How soon will we be able to have an expectation of?
It's a great question. That work is probably going to be shared, at least the metric on it is probably going to be more of a measure on the inputs. Like, are we having the meetings? Have we addressed every partnership? To what extent are we complete in making sure that we've had those conversations and that we're aligned? And then I think there's probably going to be a linked document that highlights all those partnerships, talks about the scope of work, talks about the service, and then has the metric that we're maybe sharing and looking at and measuring. So I think it's going to be kind of a gateway to a whole body of information that lies underneath it.
So we'll get an update on that when you, okay, great.
For sure.
And then I also had a question on strategic priority 5, 5.3 and 5.4. When it comes to staff retention and our thriving team, I just wanted to see if you could explain the reasoning around waiting to launch until year 27 and 28.
Sure. And I can pop that up, Chief Landon, if you can jump back over. Thank you. Just so that we're all looking at the same thing. You know, I think a lot of this, some of the pieces that we're very aware of is our team capacity and not trying to launch everything in year 1. I believe this is where we are. Is that right? And so, you know, I think some of these pieces just felt like, in terms of the capacity of the team and what they're working on first, that some of these things were going to take a little bit more time to get kicked off the ground. 5.1 and 2 are really going to lean in on developing a plan around recruitment and retention, especially for Latinx teachers, and teachers who reflect the lived experiences of our students. So we're looking for teachers who also share perhaps a newly immigrated experience, which many of our students have. And so, you know, that plan is something we want to get going on right away and then be able to implement and launch that. And so really it was about staff capacity.
Thank you. And to question number 2, point number 2 on that next slide, where it says staff diversity and staff retention, I'm wondering if you could also include in that, and this is for moving forward, the percentage of retention of Latinx staff. We're at 12% of teachers are Latinx, but I would like to know the retention
Sure.
for that.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great push. I know our retention percentage, but it is not disaggregated. So we'll disaggregate that.
Great, thank you. Each board member, directors, we will now have 5 minutes for open discussion.
I would like to just add one more thing in our slide that identifying several key gaps. Two of the bullets there talks about instruction offers inconsistent opportunities for cognitive engagement, and that students were given limited opportunities to produce academically language. In those two slides, I wonder if we have a plan, much like we do with NWEA, where there is a beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. Will we have any kind of measure in that sense in year one for our emerging bilingual students that will identify how they are doing on those bullets, and in a way, in like what has been their comprehensible input that they are receiving in their classes, and how much they are being able to engage because they're comprehending what is happening in their classroom? And so are we going to have some kind of measure that will identify how that is working?
Great question. So that data, when Attuned did the instructional program review, they used a walkthrough tool. So when they were sitting in a classroom and trying to assess whether instruction offered consistent or inconsistent opportunities for cognitive engagement, for students to really access and engage with the curriculum to produce the academic language that we're looking for, they were working through a standardized observation tool that they were assessing the classroom practices. And so what our work is we're not there yet, but what we'll need to be developing to measure those components we have walkthrough tools that we use all the time in observations, but what we're going to need to be doing is refining those to look at those metrics, and then be looking thoughtfully at classrooms and schools to say, where are we in the fall? And then as we implement more PD and coaching, how are we seeing the levels of cognitive engagement for all our students increase with that support? And what you're naming is, are we just saying that's general for the whole class, or are we specifically calling out our different, our emerging bilingual students, our students with disabilities? And so I imagine that as we refine those walkthrough tools to the strategic plan, they're going to have some of those pieces more teased out to make sure that we're hitting that benchmark for all our kids, and especially our emerging bilingual students.
And being with especially the emerging bilingual students, will we be able to disaggregate that by like NEP and LEP levels?
Great question. I'm not confident how that would work out. It depends on the observer and the depth of knowledge they have about that student body and who's who when they're doing a walkthrough observation in the classroom. But we definitely can look at that disaggregated data when we look at other unit assessments, when we look at some of the other assessments that we do throughout the year, that we can see how kids are doing to access the curriculum and the content of the classroom. So there's other ways that we assess the levels of cognitive engagement and how much kids are kind of getting in their days.
For assessments, I understand that, but if we don't have the tools to do that, can we not develop the tools, or can we not get the people in there who are able to do that? Because I think that's to the root of the cause, that if we're having our emerging bilingual learners sitting there not engaging, not being able to comprehend, not being able to understand what's happening, then we need to know that ASAP. And so I think by waiting for an exam's not telling us the level in which they're engaging. And so I really would hope that's something as a district we can put forth and find that tool and find the people who can measure that tool.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the kinds of ways that I think walkthrough tools are one tool, and observation assessments are another. We have assessments baked into lesson plans where at the end of a day, a teacher would be able to assess how every single kid did that day with the content. And so there's a lot of, I would say, kind of macro and micro ways that we'll be looking at that and monitoring that on a day-to-day basis, and then also seeing how that results into kind of the formative and summative assessments that we kind of do throughout the year and at the ends, kind of middle and end of year.
I'm going to make a motion for 2 more minutes. Somebody will second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you.
I second. Right. It's great. I was just going to ask, I was looking at your rollout, and it was talking about when the strategic plan is being brought in front of different populations. And I think it was teachers had already seen it, and something about a video. Can you share where that is and the rollout and the feedback you've gotten, and when do they come back to it? I mean, what's that timeline like? And public and parents and all that again?
Yeah, our goal is that once we have the plan formally adopted by the board, we would then move into a series of tools that we could launch this spring, which would be maybe a version of that slide deck that you all got a preview of tonight. We're working on, we want to have graphic tools, the posters that are actually falling apart a little bit. I think we came in one day and they had literally fallen off the wall. So it's definitely time for new ones. So those kind of immediate pieces we're hoping to have launched by this spring. And then I think maybe more robust tools. I think some of the ideas that we discussed during our work session of like brochures or booklets that are more detailed are things that we can continue to work on through the summer in a formal launch. In terms of teacher input, especially, teachers have been really importantly involved throughout the entire process and had many of them participated in the community input sessions. And we just in the month of March did formal presentations of this almost finished deck for our teachers at every single school, every charter. We talked through this, we collected feedback, and they actually had it's interesting because this came up in the work session. They actually had a slightly different deck that actually went through each priority and named, what's this going to look like for a classroom teacher? What's this going to look like in the schools? Each of these priorities, what are we going to feel, notice, see differently through that? And so that was part of the presentations that went out in March. And so then I think moving forward with teachers, it's going to be a lot of the accountability. They're going to be definitely able to see the data dashboards, the metrics, how we're doing in terms of executing and implementing on the plan, and then the outcomes with student achievement data. They'll be part of that. I anticipate that as we refine the plans over the next 5 years and tighten them up, that there'll be input sessions for teachers to weigh in as well.
Do we have time for one more? Okay.
Why don't you make a motion?
Can I make a motion for 2 minutes so I can ask a question?
Second.
Great. On the Attune slide, the slide on gaps, the last one in the first category is more than 1/3 of Roaring Fork students are chronically absent. I see that statement a lot. And could you explain it to me how, exactly what we mean by that phrasing? Because on the metric later on in the slide, I think 96% is the goal. And that seems like 96% attendance is the goal. And so I'm trying to understand how we're comparing this comment about 1/3 of students being chronically absent to the goal of 96%. I think chronically absent refers to only attending 90% of school days. So can you just explain this? Because it doesn't make sense to me in the way that we're phrasing it here.
I want to make sure I get this right. So I'm looking at Chief Park. Chronically absent is more than 10 days over the course of the year. Is that correct?
10%.
Or it's 10% over wherever we are. It's about 17 days over the course of the year.
So does this mean that 1/3 of students miss 17 or more days? And so then how are we measuring that to get to this 90? What is the 96%?
96% attendance to determine what that average daily attendance is.
So then
It's not 96% of students having 100% attendance or better. It's the overall average daily attendance.
Okay, so then what would be the solution to the problem that's stated on slide? The gap slide? Would that be like, I don't know, and only 10% of students are chronically absent?
It's complicated because attendance in secondary schools is measured a little differently than elementary. And
Okay.
secondary is by period and elementary is twice a day and beginning in the morning and afternoon. So it's not like 10 kids here, 10 kids there. But it is reducing increasing our overall average daily attendance intentionally and providing different interventions and supports for students who are more chronically absent.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my comment is just that when we launch this more comprehensively to the public, that the solution we've created or we're headed toward matches the challenge that's been defined by the consultants.
Yep. What you're naming, right, is that those are two different ways of measuring attendance. And so
Right.
there's
And the first one is like
either
very
one would
scary.
work.
like a third of students are chronically absent. That sounds like a very big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but then we do see consistently from the district, more positive
Mhm.
framing of those numbers, I think, like 93%, 96%. So
Right.
storytelling here is important.
Yep. And the metrics that we're using definitely matters.
Yep.
And I do think that, that data was pulled from 22-23 school year. And we have seen increasingly stronger attendance
Right,
across the board.
exactly. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm gonna make a motion.
I second.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that during the session, I followed up on giving you the opportunity to talk about how the equity audit and those results will also be added to this document once those results come back.
Thank you. So in the ADB, I believe the Equity, Diversity, Anti-Discrimination Policy that the board passed a couple of months ago, there is a requirement in the policy that as a district, we would engage in a third-party holistic organizational equity audit in the year prior to the year that we develop a new 5-year strategic plan. So in alignment with the policy, we should have done an organizational equity audit in the 22-23 school year that would have informed this year's 23-24 strategic planning process. We didn't do that. And so the board passed a resolution that's stamped in the strategic plan that we would do an off-cycle equity audit. And so our plan is to do an equity audit this fall, fall 2024. And then in part of kind of our annual review and annual calibration of the strategic plan, especially in the 24-25 school year, we'll be using the findings from that equity audit and making sure that they are reflected in the work of our strategic plan for the remaining 4 years. And then what you'll also see in the strategic plan is that about 3 years later, we will be doing an on-cycle organizational equity audit that will then inform the strategic planning process, for which I think would kick off in 28-29. So that is work that our community will definitely be a part of this fall.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. At this time, we welcome members of the public who have signed up to address the board. There's 3 speakers signed up tonight. The board allots 45 minutes for public comment. To respect the time of all who are present, speakers are to limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Reminder to all speakers to uphold our procedures for public comment. We ask you to be thoughtful and constructive with your comments, and thank you in advance for sharing your feedback. Members of the public who wish to share their views with the board may also do so in writing at any time. For this evening's public comment, we received 5 written comments. Our first speaker is Alan Munoz.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Alan Munoz Valenciano. I am regional manager for Voces Unidas de las Montañas, a nonprofit advocacy organization based here in our valley with our goal to elevate the voices of Latinos and Latina parents in our community. Today I'm here because we're calling on the Roaring Fork School District to develop a plan to recruit, hire, and retain teachers, principals, and senior level administrators that resemble the student population of the district. This plan has to have urgency and the necessary support in order to implement successfully. Our students cannot wait a decade for this to change. We have met with Dr. Cole and have discussed the importance of a plan to increase the diversity of the workforce has on student success. However, we still don't have a clear timeline or operational plan that will lay out the necessary strategies, programs, or budget needs. We are urging you, as the Board of Education, to have this as a top priority for the district. By calling for this plan, we are highlighting concerns our community has regarding the recent hirings of leadership positions in the Roaring Fork School District. Dating back to the search for the new superintendent, we've questioned whether the Roaring Fork School District made sufficient efforts in searching for candidates who resemble the student population, and including the Latino community in the process. These questions have been exemplified even more during the recent hiring of principals in the Roaring Fork School District. While we wish nothing for the best for the principals and the schools, we can't help but ask if the process of recruiting and selecting these candidates was made equitable by ensuring that Latino parents had their voices heard. We expect that any selection committee made in order to select a candidate for a leadership position in the Roaring Fork School District reflects the population of the student body. And as we know, the Roaring Fork School District is 60% Latino. So can you prove to us that any selection committee that was made during this time shared those same demographics? This is a question of human capital and how the district is going to work to ensure that our students have the best possible teachers, principals, and administrators at all levels. Our students deserve experienced leaders that will prioritize their education and make the necessary changes to ensure that quality education and not try to continue the status quo. The hiring process of the Roaring Fork School District needs a culture shift. We need to be searching for experienced and qualified candidates from across the country that will have what it takes to make the Roaring Fork School District better for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Ana Chavira.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Ana Chavira, previous certified staff for the Roaring Fork School District, longtime community member and leader at Voces Unidas. Students are currently struggling, and we need to provide the best education for them today. When I was teaching, the thought that came to my mind at the end of the day or at the end of a school year was, did I do right by those who were in front of me? Did I serve them to the best of my capacity and to the best of their needs? It's time the district does the same thing on a bigger scale. Latino students deserve a school district that will put their best interest at front. We are calling out the Roaring Fork School District to develop a plan to eliminate or come close to eliminating the achievement gap between Latino students and white students. This plan needs to be created with input from parents, students, and community members. A multi-year plan must lay out the necessary strategies, programs, budgetary needs, and human capital in order to ensure the success. This plan needs to be timely and have measurable goals that our community will be able to see and accept. It's no secret that there's a 40% gap between the academic achievement of Latino students and white students. Latino students on average are 2 grade levels behind on core subjects. While we acknowledge and thank Dr. Cole for meeting with us to discuss this issue, we can't stress enough the fact of how crucial it is that we ensure the district takes actions to address this issue without delay. Be transparent with the plan and make sure parents, students, and community members are involved in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ana Perez. Oh, okay. Thank you so much to our speakers tonight. The next business in order is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes routine personnel and minutes from our previous board meeting on April 10th. Directors, are there any items that you would like to pull off the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please call for a vote.
Director Ramirez.
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Titler,
Aye.
Director After.
Aye.
The next business in order is discussion on policies and regulations, IHAM, IHAM-R, IHAMA, KB, ADG-R, HAHC, HD, HH, HL, and HO. Each board member will have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions. We will begin with Director After. Wait,
I started last time.
oh, sorry, Director. Thank you.
My first question I have is about IHAM and the Health and Family Life Sex Education. It states at the bottom of page 1 of that curriculum will also be integrated in general education classes when appropriate. And my question is, how does this work with the opt-out policy of our comprehensive human sexuality curriculum?
Great question. It's frankly, it's the same process. And so parents would be notified at the beginning of the school year that this is part of the curriculum. And then I believe 2 weeks before that curriculum is taught, they would have that notification. They would have have the ability to review all the curriculum materials, ask questions, and then opt out of that section of the class.
Okay. Next one is about IHAMA, teaching about drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. And point 3 says to encourage the individual to adapt an appropriate attitude towards pain, stress, and discomfort. And can you explain what that means? I wasn't quite understanding that point.
Sure. A lot of times drugs, alcohol, and tobacco are used as coping mechanisms to address pain, stress, and discomfort. And we work with students who are using drugs and alcohol because because they don't have the skills to address those challenges in other ways. And so it's really helping students understand other coping strategies to address those emotions that are really strong, especially in adolescence. And so it's about really looking at different coping mechanisms.
So would it be a possibility to add something at the end of that sentence to clarify that, or
We can do that.
just seemed
Mhm.
hard for me to understand that
Sure.
sentence? In that same policy, it says, to the extent funds are available, each school is encouraged to operate and maintain an education program to assist students in avoiding and discontinuing use of tobacco. I find that a little strange that we say with funds, to the extent of funds are available, either we like buy in on that or we don't. And I have a difficulty a little bit with the way that's phrased. And can you explain and give me your thought on that?
Agreed. Though that when you mentioned that, Director Tyler, I agree with you that it either we're doing this or we're not. And if we're doing it, then we're going to resource it appropriately. So I'm with you in that feels not aligned with the spirit of the policy.
All right. And so we'll have some type of change with how that's written. When we talked about KB, parent and family engagement, I know last time we talked about this in bullet 4 on page 4 about consulting with and encouraging parents to have a voice in school. And have we set any kind of metrics about that so we can decide how that would be looked at?
We did. If you go to bottom of page 2, the last bullet of the district roles and responsibilities has that the district will report to the board at least annually on efforts made to strengthen family and community partnerships. Reports should include information and metrics gathered through parent surveys and other multi-directional communications. So that's where we've added that accountability measure. We haven't named the actual metrics, but we've pointed to the kinds of things that are in the parent survey. But that's where we address the accountability piece.
Thank you. Then I would just have one other question about the HA and the commitment to collaborative bargaining. And it says that the parties have 7 things that we're doing to work together as a group. And I'm just curious what kind of things we're doing to build this up, because it seems like we're not living up to that measure. It doesn't seem like it's us. It seems like it's they and, well, it doesn't seem like a team. It's like them and us mentality that I feel often in that situation.
I don't know that this is going to answer that question, but I do think that by moving forward a policy like HA, the board sends a clear directive of the way the board would like administration to engage in labor relations. And I think that naming the tension that you're feeling and maybe not current practice aligning to that might underscore the importance of this becoming policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director DeFreitas?
I was looking through the KB policy and just thanks for incorporating feedback there. don't have a lot of thoughts on that one. And then Director Tyler covered some of my questions about the IHAM. On the H section policies, I think going back to what Director Tyler just mentioned about the under HA, the 1 through 7, I think part of it is just making sure that we consistently align expectations for timeline and outcome. And I think that that maybe is where we're feeling some of the struggles right now, having seen some timelines shifting. And then as we consider adopting these going forward, just keeping in mind that their purpose is to protect the efforts of the interest-based bargaining group from shifting sands of politics and boards to allow one more level of protection and commitment to that collective bargaining arrangement. And so as directors consider any changes to just keep that high level need in mind that we are using these policies to codify governance that allows teachers autonomy and professional respect in their classroom when it comes to decisions surrounding what impacts them day to day, and then what impacts their students in their classroom from their own perspective. So just keeping that high level perspective as instead of sometimes diving into wordsmithing and weeds all around, to keep that in mind. So thanks.
Thank you. Director After.
Thanks. Thanks for making the changes that we discussed at the last meeting to KB. I appreciate that. It's been alluded to already here, but can you give us an update on where we stand with this is on IHAM and IHAMR. Where do we stand with improvements to the process of parents opting out? Because I know we as a board in a few different public scenarios have heard from very disgruntled parents about the opt-out procedure not working. And so I understand your answer to Kenny's question that there is a process, but can you just talk about improvements that you've made or are planning to make based on feedback from some vocal parents?
For sure. As we entered this year, we had board policy, I think the IGAE, that we would be repealing in replacement with these policies and regulations that had some opt-out guidance, but wasn't very tight and wasn't consistent. And schools did approach to opt-out distinctly in very different ways from school to school. And as we began to pilot and implement some of the curriculum that was adopted last year, we saw that that lack of consistency, the lack of fidelity to the opt-out policies. And so a lot of that feedback that we also heard from parents through the work, certainly from hearing that feedback of where we missed the mark and frankly, where we missed our obligations to parents on making sure they had access to an opt-out process, has really been integrated into IHAM-R, where we feel like we've gone a little bit further than like the CASB recommendations on very explicit technical components of timelines. And this is a more, I would say, expansive and maybe more restrictive and more directive regulation than like what CASB promotes based on that feedback. And so frankly, we're looking forward to this policy and this regulation in particular, because it is much clearer about the consistency, the expectations to try to address the concerns that we've seen this year.
So is the district giving schools the directive or the tools they need to consistently follow whatever opt-out procedures we've stated?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So this regulation will then be that communication that says we have stronger processes now for making sure that school leaders are connected to the work that the board does. Believe it or not, they're not all watching and paying and tracking all of this, but they will get a weekly update that says, this is the regulation that's been approved or that's on its way to approval by the board, and you need to be ready to implement in the fall.
Okay. Yeah, just to clarify the logic behind my question, I I want the curriculum to succeed, and I think it will not succeed if the opt-out process isn't smooth and doesn't give parents who really don't support it or don't want their kid to be part of those lessons. I think the more mistakes we make on that, the worse off it will be for the entire community and body of students who should, I think, be able to have those lessons in the first place. Agreed. Those are my only questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And to that point, I just think it'd be really important, obviously, that once this policy is approved, that and the regulation as well, that we ensure that it gets shared, not just through our staff newsletter, but it gets dispersed within the community, whether it's a remind message or a text. I think it's important for everyone to be aware that this is now the new norm for the school district. I did want to go back to KB really quick. I appreciate like my colleagues have echoed the adjustment to this policy. I still feel like that last bullet on accountability is not enough. And so I would like to encourage you guys to, and I don't know if this happens through our policy committee, but I feel like I would take out at least on that annually language, and then I would just encourage us to try to come up with what would this look like? Is this a regulation? I think especially when it comes to family engagement across the district and with the schools, I think there's a lot of really hopeful things in here, but there's not like a metric of like, how do we know that this is happening or successful? And then I just wanted to once again thank everyone that has worked on the H policies. I know it's been a lot of going back and forth, but I think that this is incredibly important, and it's something that we have pioneered in this district that we have not ever had before. So I really just want to thank everyone again for their time and their commitment, and especially our team, to make sure that this sets a standard for every school district moving forward, for every school board moving forward, that this is the expectation from the board to the superintendent. So I appreciate that. Okay. Directors, we will now have 5 minutes open for discussion.
I just want to say on ADG, our safe haven policy, that I'm proud of the district for putting forth that policy and really stepping up and saying, this is what we believe in, and to say as a district that we believe in non-discrimination, and to say as a district that we believe in having a safe environment, and that we promote inclusion, and that we are willing to put ourselves out there and say that we're going to be having training on anti-discrimination, and that we're going to have training on diversity and equity and inclusion and anti-racism policies. And it makes me feel good that we have made that move as a district to say we believe in that, we support that, and that's who we are. So I just want to say thank you for making sure that that has happened, and makes me feel good. Thank you.
And I just want to add to that, in the board update, you shared with us that there is an expectation within the CD on what a school resource officer is. Do we know if that ended up being aligned to our expectation when it came to the autism and special needs training that we wanted to make sure they had?
Good question. I don't know that we audited it other than just sharing this is what that training looks like, but we could dig deeper.
Yeah, I think that would be a good, especially as we're looking at our MOUs, that we consider that we want that to be included in our MOUs as part of their training.
Just one more follow-up on the points 1 through 7 of our collective bargaining. I think it's something we can do better as a district as we're in those meetings of maybe bringing up those norms and reminding those norms, and maybe opening with those norms as we're having meetings and putting it out there. And maybe as we get further down the line, that doesn't have to happen as much, but I think it's just something that's important for us as we're having our meetings, that we're leading with kindness and understanding a little bit more in those meetings, perhaps. Thank you.
Did you have anything?
I don't.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next business in order is the Board of Education evaluation of interim superintendent Dr. Anna Cole for the 2023-2024 school year. Each board member will have 2 minutes to share comments or ask to share comments. We will begin with Director DeFreitas.
I just wanted to thank the staff that took the time to implement and complete this very thorough evaluation process. I think, gosh, feels like ages ago, but it was available in January it had a total of 595 responses, and 64% of those were parents. And I think that it's important to recognize just what a high percentage of positive responses Dr. Cole received on this in such a short time. I mean, it's a very encouraging perspective on the leadership of the district, and I just want to thank her for the work that she did, jumping in the interim position and handling transition gracefully, and communication with honesty and openness. I think that's reflected in these numbers, and I was encouraged to see those.
Thank you. Director DeFreitas.
Director after.
I'm sorry, after.
That's okay.
I apologize.
Yeah, echoing what Director DeFreitas said, thanks to the almost 600, just shy of 600 community members who took the time to evaluate our at the time interim leader. That data that was collected was extremely valuable to the board in making the final summary evaluation, which people can read in the agenda. There's a link to the public evaluation. Thanks to Dr. Cole for showing up so well as the interim leader, which is what this time period for which this review was based. And it was a pleasure to be able to put this together for you. And as it summarizes at the end of the evaluation, we were, as a board, certainly impressed and pleased with the work that happened under your leadership, and look forward to continuing to work together. And one more comment, which is just that the work of the evaluation was largely led by Director Kuhlenberg, who isn't here today, but she really did the lion's share of the work for this.
That's it. Thank you. Director Teitler.
I would just echo the same thing that I've heard. And so thank you, Dr. Cole, for jumping into a difficult position and doing it with a positive outlook and a positive attitude. And I think that really is reflective in the relationships that you build. And I believe that that goes a long way of building relationships is going to be the continued success. And if people are feeling heard and listened to, and then you can come down to a position of you agree or disagree, but everybody needs to have the thought that they were heard and understood. And I think you do a great job with that. And just in the last paragraph of what was written, I just want to read it. It says, Dr. Cole's ability to see the big picture and her attention to detail are assets in the position. Her focus on building positive relationships and willingness to intentionally seek out feedback are valued. And I would just like to echo that I really do appreciate your willingness to seek feedback and to look at all sides and coming in with an open mind. And so thank you for that.
Thank you. And thank you. I'm going to echo the thanks to our chair, Director Kuhlenberg, for her work on this, and George. I'm going to just read the initial paragraphs on this because I think it's important. Selecting and evaluating the superintendent is one of the Board of Education's most important jobs. A thorough superintendent evaluation process helps develop good relationships, clarifies roles, creates common understanding of the leadership being provided, and provides a mechanism for public accountability. The superintendent role is a professional position equivalent to the chief executive officer in the private sector. As such, the superintendent is charged with leading and administering the organization according to the direction from and the policies adopted by the board. The duties of the superintendent are outlined here, which it is a live link. So if you guys want to, the public wants to look at it. The purpose of evaluating the superintendent is not to micromanage the organization, but to provide oversight, a public assurance that the district's mission and policies are being effectively implemented. The evaluation process keeps the board and public informed about the progress being made toward district goals and provides input and feedback to the superintendent for continuous improvement. An evaluation of the superintendent is conducted annually. This year, the board again utilized the comprehensive evaluation process that was developed over the past year with some adjustments based on feedback upon conclusion of the last process. The evaluation process included an open community survey, a staff survey of 38 leaders, a self-reflection, an evaluation completed by each board member. The board and Dr. Cole also agreed to add specific goals to the evaluation process this year. An online survey was available to the entire community between January 12th to the 26th. There were a total of 595 responses, with the biggest respondent group, 64.5 being parents, followed by almost 22.2% identifying as certified employees. You can find this evaluation online now for anyone interested. And we, again, like Director Teitler shared, are grateful for Dr. Cole's ability to see the big picture. And the board looks forward to continuing the work in alignment with Dr. Cole and achieving a shared vision of academic success and well-being of all Roaring Fork Schools students. Okay. Directors, we will now have 5 minutes for open discussion if needed.
I'll just tag on one last thing is for people who think of what the position of superintendent is, like, of course, it's the chief operating officer or executive officer of the district. But for people who aren't on the day-to-day seeing what's happening with this position, it's not like I have my plan for the week and this is how it's going to work. Instead, it's emergency, put out fire, emergency, put out fire. And it's again and again and again. And when you think, oh, it's the hard things that are happening, no, it's just like, it's what this role entails. Like, there's always something that needs your attention more than you have the ability to give. And I just, again, would like to say what a great job I feel that you are doing and the way in which you are able to still give time and make people feel heard in a situation where it's not an easy task to do that. And so just, I wanted to mention what that role entails and what is not seen from the outside of looking at the job duties, but what is really the day-to-day aspect of what the role entails. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the proclamation honoring our pre-collegiate program?
I move that the board approve the proclamation honoring our pre-collegiate program as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I believe we will now have 2-minute discussions for each board member on the proclamation, right? Okay. Director After.
Thank you. Thanks to the pre-collegiate team for being here today, tonight. I learned a lot about the program from your last report to this board, but also in reading the proclamation and on the 20-year anniversary of the founding of the organization, and just my very strong kudos to you all for the amazing leadership and the service that you've provided to so many individuals in the Valley. So thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for all the work you've done over the last 2 decades.
Thank you. Director Teitler.
I would also like to say thank you for the great work that you're doing and the number of students and young adults that you are influencing. And I feel very fortunate to have been to get to be part of your program. I am a pre-collegiate mentor for current 11th graders this year, and just seeing it up close and then seeing it from afar, it all makes me really proud of our district that we are offering this and that we give this to these students, that the experiences that they get going to CU, the experiences that they get from having members of the community helping in situations in which the parents don't have that foundation to support the students. And I recognize the ever evolving state of pre-collegiate, and I appreciate how you are keeping up with the times and matching what the changes are needing. So just thank you so much for the work from your level, Dave, but also from the pre-collegiate staff members at each school. And the district is really lucky to have this program.
Thank you, Director DeFreitas.
I don't have a lot to add that hasn't been said already, just the intense value that we intentionally build relationships, that's what moves our community forward, that's what allows us to have a future, is the relationships with students and community members, with teachers, and the opportunities that come from that. We can't, we make policy, but it's not nearly as impactful as connecting with a student on that level. And I think that the value has just been seen again and again for 2 decades. So thank you.
Thank you. And I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Thank you to the pre-collegiate team who is here with us tonight. We appreciate obviously the work that you guys do every day for our students across the school district, making sure that they are not only getting the opportunities to be seen, in all of their experience, but also giving them the opportunities to have experiences outside of this valley and outside of our schools. So thank you so much for that. I wanted to make sure, and there is a question on here if there are any intervening motions to amend the resolution. I don't know if that was a mistake. Okay. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote.
And after the vote, will we read the resolution?
Yep.
Then yes, thank you.
Director Tytler will read the resolution.
Okay, Director DeFreitas.
Aye.
Director Tytler.
Aye.
Director After.
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Aye. Thank you. Director Tytler, would you mind reading that for us?
No. Roaring Fork Schools Board of Education proclamation honoring pre-collegiate program. Whereas the 2023-2024 school year marks the 20th anniversary of the founding of the Roaring Fork Pre-Collegiate Program, and whereas the program was started thanks to the foresight of the district, the Aspen Community Foundation, Colorado Mountain College, and the University of Colorado at Boulder, all of whom saw an opportunity to improve student outcomes and confront systematic issues of college access and attainment for first-generation students. And whereas these unique and lasting partnerships have been supported by 20 years of community volunteerism that has formed the bedrock of the pre-collegiate mentoring model and has directly contributed to the success of the program. And whereas since its inception in 2003, the pre-collegiate program has helped over 1,000 first-generation students graduate from high school and be prepared to attend college. And whereas the board would like to thank and acknowledge the program partners, past and present, volunteers and staff, prior Board of Education members, and the community at large for supporting our students through this program. And whereas most importantly, the board would like to thank the students and families who have participated in the program for trusting in the district and the program staff to help them navigate the difficult process of getting to college. And whereas despite the incredible success of the program, the core principles and issues that called for its creation still remain. That while ability is equally spread among students, opportunities to access post-secondary spaces are not equitably available to all. And whereas the board and pre-collegiate are committed to continuing to work in partnership with families, institutions, volunteers, and the greater Roaring Fork Valley community to help students achieve their post-secondary goals. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that on April 24th, 2024, the Roaring Fork School Board of Education publicly affirms our appreciation and gratitude to the pre-collegiate program, encourages all to acknowledge and celebrate the program's incredible achievements, renews our commitment to supporting the first-generation students of the Roaring Fork School District for the next 20 years, and calls upon our community to join us in this journey. adopted and approved this 24th day of April, 2024. Great job.
Thank you.
Are we pausing for a photo?
Should we make a motion?
Oh,
Just-
should I make a motion to
Did you just?
take a photo break? Oh, do we need a reporter here?
Are we trying to grab it? Taylor?
Yeah, let's
No
just
one
do our
else has a
camera.
camera. No one has a camera here.
Let's do our cell phones.
Yeah. Oh, we lost Kenny.
No.
We haven't invited Dr. Coleman, Dr. Parkins to sit on plus members of our partnerships. University of Colorado Boulder has a seat. Jim and I are there. You do a for Gail Schwartz, who's one of the founding members of the commission way back in 2003. You guys have Gail. Peter as well. Peter's been on board. And then my staff members are there, Martha and Adrian, who are really embarrassed. I can't underscore just thinking about this, how unique this partnership is. Like, CU has tried this model of communities and it hasn't been successful. So it's I think a really, it's a kudos to the fact that it takes 20 years to get to this point, but it's that longevity and consistency from the board of ed that I think has really been one of the backbones of being able to build a program and be successful in it, and the magic sauce, whatever it is, it's really neat. So I think it is something you should celebrate it. That. So, photo. We're excited.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. And what did we say? Pretty good, you. Nice.
Okay, this is the camera.
Yeah.
Cheese.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Of course, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, we appreciate it.
Such a changing of thousand lives.
So many stories, which has been incredible.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, we appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
Take care. I thought I had a
Bye.
new vest.
Oh, there's Taylor.
Oh, Taylor.
Oh.
business in order is board reports and comments. And we will begin with Director Tyler.
Since our last meeting, really no big updates for me to add, except that we're continuing to see great progress. If you have a chance to stop by the Meadowwood site, it's starting to look from the outside like they're done, but still some inside stuff needing to be done, but it's looking great. And there's new floor plans that have been posted if people are interested in seeing them for what the units look like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if you could share that with us if it's online.
What's that?
That'd be awesome if you could share that with us if it's
Okay,
online.
I'll share that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Director DeFreitas.
Thanks. I was thinking we need to do like a press show through there just to look at the work being done before teachers move in and they have to tidy up the rooms.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay, so quick report from me. I had the pleasure of attending the Glenwood Springs elected officials mixer. It was a good time had by all the other Friday night. And I was in the room with city council and other organizations that, you know, go to the ballot to get their position. And I thought it was interesting because it was, first of all, it's a really good opportunity to build relationships with other local leaders and commiserate on some of the same things. But there was just such a consistent theme about housing and staff retention. And I just had to try not to brag on the housing too much because our school district we are doing a really good job. We are working so hard to prioritize that. And it was interesting to listen to the struggles and to just know that in this particular way, we are ahead of the game and we are doing what we can. And so that was a really good feeling. Throughout the valley, it was from Parachute all the way up to Basalt, really, or from Aspen, actually, there were some Pickett County commissioners. So all the way from Parachute to Aspen and just highlighting that we have such a shared experience, even though we live in geographically very different places. And so the commuters who work in one place and drive through the towns and just how important it's going to be to maintain those relationships as we share resources and we have shared futures. So, and then the other report is just, I wanted to just weigh in that, or remind that continuing very important work of the collective bargaining agreement with the teachers union and just how exciting it is to be a part of this and remind that the purpose is, of the work is to codify the interest-based bargaining process, which has been in place for over 25 years in the district in a way that, makes professional respect and transparency of resources clear and prioritized throughout our district for those certified staff members who are part of that interest group. And it's to elevate the voices of those who see our students every day and live the reality of the choices that we make here. And also the implementation decisions of administration and making sure that we keep that high level perspective clearly in mind as we move into the last, hopefully, few steps in this process.
Director after.
Great, thanks. I'm sorry I missed the Glenwood happy hour. I was intending to go and then my husband ended up having to work. So I had
I
a
was going to say we can't keep up with the Glenwood Springs City Council.
Well, gratitude to them for hosting because it sounds like it was fun and worthwhile time. If they do another one, I will definitely try to make it. I have a comment. I'll phrase as a question, and if you can answer. I had a recollection, and I'm trying to find my notes on it, that we were going to get an update about special ed at this meeting. So I know priority shift, and that was a while ago, but can we get that update on special ed?
Currently scheduled for the May 8th work session. So
The
our
May
very
work
next
session.
board
Okay.
meeting. Yep.
Okay, great. And then are we also getting an update on the security team at that, or is that getting shifted as well? Or is that getting shifted first?
Oh, I think that's
Dustin.
the same. It's part and parcel with ADD, the safe schools policy. I
Okay.
think those are both on point for May 8th. board
Okay.
meeting. Yep.
Great. Thanks for the update. I haven't had any, I couldn't attend the last family advisory council meeting because I was at the Carbondale Community School big event. And so that was great to see. And kudos to all the kids there and the teachers and families that work so hard to put that on every year.
Thank you. I have a couple of things. One, I just want to mention that board director chair, Director Kuhlenberg and myself have started conversations with some of the board members across the valley, and particularly starting with RE2, to start talking about a valley summit. Because I think it's just good for us to start getting into those conversations before we get to host, hopefully still crossing our fingers, the legislative school tour with the Federal Relations Network through CASB in September. So I think that's on our calendars now for us to start planning. I also just wanted to mention that the annual conference for our school board partners, their registration has opened. And so I think it's really important for us to be able to decide if we're going to attend that conference. The dates are July 12th to the 14th. It's in San Antonio this year. So I think we need to just see if that might fit in our schedules of the board, if there's interest and also opportunity for us to attend. I think it's a really great conference for us to get professional development. So I think it's a really good opportunity for us to try to make that registration happen sooner than later, because they probably will be booked. And then I just want to mention, I too wasn't able to attend the last Equity Advisory Council, which I was really sad about, but I just want to thank that team for all of their work. And then I just want to, again, and I know I sent an email out, but I want to just give a reminder, especially as we end this school year and start transitioning to the next. It's super important for us as board members to be able to have our committee assignments on our calendar, because it is so hard for us. Whether it's childcare or taking everyone with us, it's just really important that we're able to have that on our calendar so we can attend these committee assignments. And I think that was it for my updates.
Can I throw in a couple that I forgot?
Sure.
One is we had a calendar committee meeting about trying to get a calendar going we have one now for next year, but we're trying to get one for the next 3 years after that. And so our goal is to have that calendar in place by Christmas of next year, by winter break I was thinking the next school year. And a winter break of the next school year. And so for the next following 3 years, isn't that the correct timing? Next December coming up.
24.
That we're looking to have it. And that we're just really trying to get that so it's further out and to give more time for parents and teachers and to have schedules ahead of time. And the reason why we only went 1 year this time because we were pressed for a deadline. And the reason for 3 years is because it's on a 2-year cycle, and the 3 years will put us back on that 2-year cycle. And so we're looking to do that. And then I also want to say I had the opportunity to go to the scholarship night at Roaring Fork High School this past week, and it was really an amazing night for so many seniors, and just really great to see all of the community that participates to offer local scholarships to our students. And it's really a community-wide event, and it really takes the proverbial village to raise the children. And so thank you for all the community support. And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarships given out. It's just really a wonderful night. So
Thank you, Director Taylor. I just want to make sure, did we all receive our assignments for graduation? We all confirmed?
I saw that.
I did not.
Board update. It was linked in the board.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And I think it's important to, we did receive a sign up, but all of us should have a high school within our schools that we represent. So it's important for you to be able to attend that graduation specifically. And if you can't, please let us know, because we need to be able to have board representation at each one of these high schools.
Yeah.
Okay. And we will move on to our final agenda item with minutes to spare. And we will start with or end with appreciations. So we will begin with Director DeFreitas. I think it falls to you. No?
I think it is first.
Kaitlyn? After someone
I
take
can
it.
go. Thanks to the leadership team at the district for working on a number of time sensitive and pressing emergent issues over the last couple of weeks. Also, I know everyone's been putting in extra time, and so we're grateful for that. Thanks to all the teachers who wrapped up CMAS, was it last week? And then hopefully enjoyed a day off on Friday before having a professional development day on Monday. And to the students for sticking with it. And then lastly, thanks to the entire team working on the Meadowood housing. It's going to be really exciting to see that in fruition. And I agree with your point, Lindsay, about if possible for us to get a sneak peek in there before folks move in, and it'd be great to see it live.
Thank you. Director Taylor?
I would like to give a shout out to a group that Dr. Cole alluded to in her opening session. And I would just like to say the partnership that we have with Valley Settlement and the Parent Mentor Program is such an important, strong organization that we have in our district. And so thank you to all the hours that they put in, but also thank you for representing your students and children in this program and being part of the school and having that, like being liaisons for us to the community. So I think it's a great program, and thank you.
Thank you, Director DeFreitas.
Yeah, I just wanted to just do a quick appreciation for a nonprofit that I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, ACES in Aspen. And just this time of year, they get very, very busy because they're hosting class after class of students. And it's always an impactful visit. And it's a nonprofit that's been really substantially committed to bringing classes and students who might not otherwise have access to information about ecology and biodiversity and just animals, and then a living like farm. It's very experiential, and they just do such a good job. All three of my kids have gone multiple years, and each time they come back with specific stories. So there's just a lot of those nonprofits in our valley that are providing services and enrichment for our students this time of year, and I want to acknowledge them.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to our team who took care of this for us. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing, and we really do appreciate the little things. We really do. And I also want to just echo the thanks from my colleague in regards to being able to do many things. I know that there is always something. And so I appreciate your guys' flexibility, your commitment to our students, and making sure that they're always the focus of all of those situations. And then I also just want to thank, I think that this, we're approaching Teacher Appreciation Week, and there's many times that we appreciate teachers or administrators, and we're always so grateful for all of the work they do. And I just want to make sure that I, especially at this meeting, appreciate all of our custodians, everyone who takes the time to make sure that our schools are ready, clean, ready for our kids to come the next day, who work nights. We're so appreciative of them because many of them are also parents, and I think it's really important that they are part of our community and that we give gratitude for the work that is needed for our schools to run. So thank you so much to them, everyone, classified bus drivers, lunch ladies, thank you. And I think there's no further business and there's no objection. The meeting will now be adjourned at 7:53 p.m. Okay.
Gavel.
Oh.